Thank you all so much for joining us today. Very excited to have you here for the next iteration of our Raising Ambition Through Partnership webinar series. This webinar will be featuring a new report that is just launching today, which we will put in the chat for you, related to tripling renewables, powering climate action across sectors. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We are pleased to offer interpretation into French and Spanish for this session. So if you would like to listen in a language other than the default language of English, please follow the instructions on the screen. I will also put these in the chat. Um, you will click the globe icon on the bottom of the Zoom window to select your preferred language. The languages, again, available are Spanish and French. Once you select the language that you'd like to listen in, you can then mute original audio to avoid any overlapping sound. And I will put these instructions in the chat box as well. We hope that you will use both the chat and the question and answer function. So the chat function will be open, they're both open throughout the entire webinar, but we hope the chat will be used to share comments, resources, engage with other participants. And you can also introduce yourselves and share what organization or country that you're joining from. But then if you have questions for any of the speakers, we hope that you will use the question and answer function. Both the chat and the question and answer are along the bottom of the Zoom screen. The question and answer function will allow us to keep track of all of the questions that are asked and allow for panelists to directly respond via text so that everyone can read them if we run out of time for questions. All the materials from today's session will be shared with attendees following the session, as well as any highlighted resources. And the recording will also be available on the NDC Partnership YouTube channel. So by participating in this session, you consent to being recorded. So thank you very much for your attention to these quick housekeeping notes. We're excited to have you join us today and want to give a quick overview of the Raising Ambition Through Partnership webinar series, which is meant to highlight successful examples of mitigation and adaptation ambition raising efforts and emphasize learning to scale impact across the NDC partnership. And today's objectives, we're going to explore some practical approaches to incorporating renewable energy in countries' NDCs, share this new policy brief that was just launched today on tripling renewables, powering climate action across sectors, and then hear from a panel of experts on recommendations for increasing countries' renewable energy capacity. So with that, I will hand it over to Pablo Vieira, the Global Director of the NDC Partnership Support Unit, to give some welcoming remarks. Over to you, Pablo.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's great to have so many of you join this very, very important conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about powering climate action across sectors by tripling renewables. One critical element of raising ambition as countries are preparing their new NDCs, and one of the most relevant and important outcomes of the Global Stocktake. Increasing capacity for renewable energy is core to the work of the members of the partnership, and this is evidenced in countries' NDCs and in the support they are requesting through the NDC partnership. Of the 103 countries that we're currently supporting, 84 countries are requesting energy-related support in areas such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy access. Energy is the number one sector for which we receive requests for support. Many of the requests are cross-sectoral, so they cover the whole range of energy activities, but 12% of them are specific to transport sector, 11% of them to agriculture, and 10% to the water sector, specifically to showcase how the Nexus approach to energy as a driver of sectoral performance is so important. 41% of these energy requests remain unsupported. So even though the response rate is quite high, it is very important for us to double down on our efforts to collectively support countries as they implement their NDCs. As of yesterday, 22 countries have submitted their new NDC, their NDC 3.0. We expect over 180 countries to do it before the end of the year. And through our support mechanism for the development of these new NDCs, our global call for NDCs 3.0 and LTLEDs, 34 of the 81 countries that we are supporting have requested energy-specific activities to be supported. So still remains a very, very important element of ambition raising in countries' priorities. So let's move into today. Today's session will include welcoming remarks from His Excellency Mr. Ole Tonke, is the Undersecretary for Development Policy and Climate Ambassador at Denmark's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Denmark is the co-chair of the NDC Partnership alongside Brazil, and Denmark supported the development of this document that we're presenting today, of this specific brief, as well as a brief that we discussed couple of weeks ago on including adaptation in the new NDCs. So thank you so much, Denmark, for that leadership in helping countries understand how to transform the outcomes of the Global Stocktake into concrete commitments in their NDCs. Then we're going to have a presentation on the new policy brief, Tripling Renewables, Powering Climate Action Across Sectors. This paper provides practical recommendations for how NDC 3.0 can drive renewable energy deployment while unlocking co-benefits for other sectors such as health and food systems, as well as economic development and resilience. The critical role that renewable energy plays in promoting and fostering sustainable development across the economy. And finally, we'll have a panel discussion where we will hear a range of perspectives on incorporating renewable energies across sectors in countries' NDCs. We hope to have some time at the end for the panelists to respond to your questions. So please ask your questions through the Q&A function, and we will make sure that we answer them either during this session or in writing. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. And I'm very happy now to invite His Excellency Mr. Ole Tonke to deliver some opening remarks for today's session. Ole, welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks a lot, Pablo, and also for that introduction. First of all, good morning for those of you who are on that side, and good afternoon to those who are on my side, and good evening, I guess, for those who are further to the east. A huge thank you to everybody for joining, and also to Pablo and his team and everybody who were into organizing today's event. It's actually really important how do we actually make this global shift towards renewable. It's really top of the agenda. We've had a lot of discussions with the Brazilian presidency, and one of the things I know that is very close to their heart right now is how do we actually make sure that we implement what was in the GST outcome as such? How do we translate that document from Dubai that was so important into action on the ground? And how do we make sure that that comes into the NDCs, NDC 3.0, as Pablo explained, again, and becomes something that we all look upon on how to implement basically. And if you look at the GST a bit closer, there's a number of really important indicators and targets that we all agreed upon at that time. One of them that was key for staying what we term Paris aligned and according to 1.5 degree is obviously to triple renewable energy by 2030 and make this really crucial transition away from fossil fuel, which is also stated in the GST as such document. But if you look at then what is happening right now, I think renewable energy has gone from, if you take a look the past decades, renewable energy started as a niche way to produce electricity. And within, I think, the last 5 to 10 years, it's really gone from niche into mainstream. And if you look at what's happening today, I think recently the Secretary General Guterres, he mentioned the number that 92% of all electricity production that were installed last year, new ones, was actually renewable. So for me, that's a key indicator that whether you believe in climate change or not, whether you subscribe to the ideology or whatever, it's actually a better deal. It pays off. It's less expensive to install renewable energy. Obviously, the last remaining challenge is the storage, especially related to solar. There's a lot of cross-fertile between solar and wind, because oftentimes when the weather is great and the sun shines, there's not too much wind, and vice versa. So they can supplement each other really well. But the storage challenge is on its way to be solved as well. And all experts who are working commercially on this say within the next 5-7 years, the storage challenge will be solved, and it will be done at an affordable price, so that the alternative of renewable energy becomes the obvious choice for electricity production moving forward in the future. And so it's all about reshaping power systems all over the world. It's all about supporting and driving economic growth, but also enhancing energy access in many African countries. And again, at a better price, and at the same time as green. And all that needs to be incorporated into the new NDCs, and where the big challenge will be then, how do we actually implement that? And there's a lot on the side of regulations. There's a lot of how do we drive the cost of finance down. So all those questions needs to be tackled moving forward, and that's part of the reason why we have the NDC partnership, because they are able to pull on all the necessary technical experts, technical assistance available, including, for instance, some of the experts that we from the Danish side have deployed at a global level, either at our embassies or that are traveling out from Copenhagen, who sits with these challenges on an everyday basis, but are actually ready to share the know-how and how do we make this happen in Denmark, where we oftentimes, when we have enough wind, have more than 100% renewable electricity into our grid. So really proud that the NDC partnership plays a crucial role in this. Use them, and really hope that today's discussion will inspire everybody and bring some ideas and some action off the ground as such. So thanks a lot from my side. Over to you, Pablo.
Thank you so much, Ole. That's very, very important. And thank you to Denmark, because Denmark played a critical role as a co-chair of the Global Stocktake process to deliver on those very, very important commitments that, as you said, need to be fundamental in driving the ambition in the next round of NDCs that are coming in, trickling in at this point. But we hope to see many of them coming before September 30th. So let me move on now to the presentation of the report. I'm very happy to introduce Elizabeth Press. She's the Director of Accelerated Partnership for Renewable Energy in Africa, APRA, in its implementation office. And she's the lead author of this policy brief. Elizabeth is also a good friend of the NDC Partnership family, represented Irina in the steering committee, and delivered this very, very important report. So Elizabeth, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for the contributions and your leadership in this report, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. And I really feel at home with NDC Partnership, and also with Denmark. We have really close cooperation, also in the current work that I'm doing with APRA. And I am normally in Nairobi, which makes it a real change both in the scenery but also in the outlook. How we look at renewable energy, and in part it was the driving force behind the thinking of what do we add to this debate around tripling, because everybody's working on tripling, as both you, Pablo, and all have said. It is a critical piece of the stocktake and the plan to 2030 in our 1.5 degree pathway. Now, can I have the first slide, please? I think the next one. There we go. So just a little bit, to kind of show the pledge, what was in Global Stocktake. And I want to reflect here on something, because we always talk about renewables, how critical they are for delivery of climate goals. But we sometimes forget that the renewables also gave courage to all of us to have Paris Agreement, because suddenly we had this solution that made the possibility of 1.5 open. And so the commitment to actually do something was a lot easier with renewables. Next slide, please. And here I want to pick up on what Oleg was talking about renewables, and how this is my favorite graph, and Irina does this very well over the years, kind of tracking. But I took this one from Axios because you can see how non-renewable capacity additions are going down, and renewables post-Paris really skyrocket. And it shows that before Paris, it was gradually moving. But once there was this global policy decision that renewables will be the backbone of delivery because of energy, there is the courage that markets responded. And you will see discrepancy between this slide and what we have in the report, because the data is changing so fast that we actually had an outdated number in the brief. So I included this one because it was almost 600 gigawatt in 2023. So the policy alignment was initially driven by climate, but now we see it very much driven by other things. We see it by industrial strategies. We see new considerations around energy security, around independence. So it's a lot broader strategy, because technology is there, economic case is there, and the speed of deployment is not comparable to other technologies. It's just fast, and you can do it in many places in different ways. Next one. And now every year I get really, really stressed in March when we start getting new numbers of renewables, and this is where really the unacceptable trend that is so embedded and in the way we are moving really persists. So you can see here that we have a phenomenal number at the global level, but once we start looking into bits and pieces and different regions, you see a concentration in three regions. There's North America, Europe, and Asia, led by China, because China is an absolute leader in Asia. And the regions like Africa, where we have 600 million people without access to power, basically lag behind. I mean, in 2024, there was another around just over 4 gigawatts added in Africa, so it's still really way below. And this is not because of lack of ambition. I don't know how many of you track some of these things, but like for instance, the African heads of state committed to 300 gigawatt by 2030 in the Nairobi Declaration at the first African Climate Summit. But we see a total disconnect between the ambition and deployment, and this is in great part due to the lack of access to finance, lack of infrastructure. This kind of deeply embedded historical problems that actually obstruct development at all levels. Next slide, please. And so I just want to mention one more thing. In addition to concentration in geographies, we also see sectoral concentration. So even in conversations, you often see conversation around power, electricity, but not looking at other options that actually come from renewables. And this is also striking, looking at the numbers from NDCs. Many countries have renewable energy targets in the NDC, 65% of them. But what we see in national plans of policies is higher, and we see a lot more ambition there, still falling significantly short of what is required to 2030 to tripling. But this inconsistency between different policy instruments and governments also gives a level of insecurity and lack of clarity to investors to actually figure out how they can advance and where they can invest. So the next round of NDCs is really a key opportunity to connect ambition with actionable advice and finance that goes with it. And to do that, there is also a necessity to shift the mindset. Because the mindset, we always look at capacity. We look at how many megawatts, how many gigawatts, what is even the target itself drives us that way. But having this more nuanced view and looking at energy not only as the commodity that has X many megawatts, gigawatts, but also a service, as in what is it going to do, is really, really critical. And this is the point that we actually tried to raise in this brief. Next slide, please. So for that, to maximize the impact of renewables requires integration into sectors that basically drivers of development and basic services, and also oftentimes most vulnerable to climate shocks. And we have a phenomenal panel after this, with colleagues who are experts, some of whom actually contributed to the development of this paper, who will speak on some of these sectoral issues. But what we see is that some of this system will really increase the use of energy as well. For instance, the water system, as there is a need for more desalination, more pumping, and which requires energy for sure. The agri-food systems, they use 30% of global energy today, and it's mostly fossil fuels. And so there's so many solutions that we can actually systematically deploy to help change this picture. And also the health services, I think, for all of us who were watching what was happening during COVID, it was evident how vulnerable health services were because of the lack of energy and systemic problems around that. And we have Salvatore from WHO who will expand on this. Next slide, please. So what does it mean in practice? So that means that we need to shift from this sectoral focus on energy to actually look at the systems, to take a systemic lens. So, for those of us who were around for quite some time, I think you will remember in 2010, 2011, there was this really big focus on nexus, and the nexus was the key word, and there were lots of tools and movement and work around that. But it didn't really, it kind of died down after a while. Now it's back. I mean, like I was talking to colleagues from NDC Partnership, but I mean, now we see in the WEF, they just established one of the councils on this nexus issue around the food, energy, and water. And the difference this time is that we actually have a lot better data, we have a lot better tools, and we have seen some results. So the work can be very, very different. So we're talking in a very different setting. So we can actually move the needle here and align climate, energy, and development plans across ministers, sectors, but also financing systems. So for that, we can actually develop sector-specific countries can develop sector-specific roadmaps to guide investment and coherent platforms for project development and delivery. And in this regard, it's really essential to include local governments, SMEs, and innovators. And this is the point that I really want to underscore. There's so much innovation happening on the ground that is not captured, that we don't see, because it's happening in desperate corners. And renewable energy really triggers the imagination of young people, of remote communities who are making something out of it. And we still don't have a systemic mechanism to capture this. So we will need to find a way, and I think NDC Partnership can play a big role in this, in consolidating this best practice and experiences that we can share among countries, because so some of these solutions are really linked to countries of the global south, and innovation will come from there. It's not going to come from other places. And in all of that, we often talk about mitigation alone when we talk about renewables, but we really must integrate adaptation, not as an add-on, but as a core outcome. So to close, it's that tripling renewables is really achievable and cost-effective. But we have to look at this integration across sectors, across geographies, and across peoples, across mitigation and adaptation. So the next cycle of NDCs can connect the ambition with real-world delivery. That means aligning energy, climate, and development plans, and acting where the impact will be the greatest. And I just want to mention in this brief, we actually tried to profile some of the tools that already exist, starting with NDC Partnership, Navigator, the work that was done by OECD and IEA and ARENA, among others, that can support this work. So the goal cannot be just more renewables, but renewables that work for people, for systems, and for resilience. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And I love the way that you finished, because with our very good panel, we will be able to explore those benefits of advancing renewables. Again, it's not about the number, as you said it. It's not about how much. It's about what is it going to do and how it's going to drive development for countries, through sectoral approaches, through nexus approaches, that will drive mitigation and adaptation, specifically. So this framing that you put in this document is fundamental, because it's looking at not the ultimate outcomes of increasing renewable, not just at the targets that countries put forward. And this should also be part of what is reflected in the NDCs. Now, the NDCs should demonstrate how you are connecting those specific sectoral targets to your sustainable development, to the benefits across the population, by improving the way in which the different sectors develop. So I'm very happy to now introduce our panel. We have great government leaders and institutional partners that will reflect on how we can collectively increase renewable energy capacity through the NDCs, and how this is connected to the broader thinking of sustainable development. If we have some time at the end, we will again open for the audience to bring Q&As. But let me now get started. We have 4 great panelists. We have Yanis Vaskalis, who's Natural Resources Officer at the Energy Team of the FAO, UN Food and Agriculture Organization. We have Salvatore Vinci, Technical Lead on Healthcare Facility Electrification from the World Health Organization, WHO. We have Peter Catanisa, Senior Environment and Climate Change Policy Expert and former advisor to the Minister at the Ministry of Natural Resources in Rwanda. And we are inviting Elizabeth to also join the panel. So let me get started. I will go around and I will ask questions to each one of our panelists. As a reminder, you have 4 minutes each, so that maybe we can have a conversation at the end of the first round. So let me start with you, Yanis. It would be very interesting for us to understand what opportunities exist to expand the use of renewables in agri-food systems, and how can this contribute to countries' adaptation and mitigation goals, and of course, development, and how FAO supports countries to more effectively incorporate agriculture-linked renewable solutions into their NDCs, specifically this last round of NDCs. Yanis, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pablo. And thank you very much, colleagues, for involving us and for giving us the opportunity to speak in this very interesting webinar. I think it's very important, first of all, to recognize this importance of the tripling the renewable capacity, and then how it's important to look at the different sectors. And then I would like to go ahead and speak a bit about how energy and agriculture are connected, and then go a bit into how FAO is supporting countries in this. It's important to set the stage a bit and understand how the energy, agri-food systems, and climate change are all interconnected, and then how this recognizes using this interconnection can help us achieve our climate goals and triple also the renewable energy capacity. So as already mentioned by Elizabeth, agri-food systems consume a lot of energy, and energy is needed throughout the value chain for all the stages of the value chain. Currently, around 30% of the global energy consumption happens in agriculture, and as agri-food systems are very much using fossil fuels, they are producing a lot of GHG emissions and impact climate change. And currently, this energy use produces around 31% of total GHG emissions. In this regard, we can understand that there is a huge potential to increase the capacity of renewables in agriculture to combat climate change, but also help to increase the capacity of renewables in the world and also combat the food and energy crisis at the same time. Next slide, please. So in this regard, there are many, many different ways where energy and agriculture have kind of a common ground and where we can have a lot of renewable energy solutions related to agriculture. And this is part of the work that we do here in FAO related to energy. So we can work with renewable energy for agriculture, where, for example, we can use solar energy to power irrigation, to power processing, or the cold chains to reduce food loss and waste, which is very prevalent, especially in rural communities with limited access to energy. We also work a lot on the sustainability and energy efficiency in agriculture, which can increase the productivity and help the populations have a larger productivity, increase their incomes, and improve their livelihoods. And we can also work a lot on the production of sustainable bioenergy from agriculture, where we can utilize the agricultural residues, like crop residues or manure, to produce renewable energy like biogas, which can be used for heat and electricity, solid or liquid biofuels. And in this regard, we can recognize how there is a huge potential to increase the capacity of renewables and also mitigate climate change impacts through these energy smart agri-food systems. And next slide, please. And so in this regard, FAO is working a lot in many different projects on energy smart agri-food systems. And we also help a lot into integrating such solutions into the new round of NDCs to help countries achieve their climate goals. So our work generally starts from assessments, which go from the renewable energy potential to the techno-economic assessment and the sustainability of the renewable energy value chains that can be set through agriculture. We work a lot with engaging the stakeholders and capacity building. And then the more important thing is we work a lot on providing results, reports, and then recommendations for policy development, for action plans, so that countries can actually integrate such solutions, increase the use of renewables in agriculture, and be able to achieve their goals. And in this regard, I will just give 3 very brief examples of ongoing work that we have, which is strictly related to NDCs. So for example, we work in a project in Trinidad and Tobago that is funded from the Joint SDG Fund. And in that country, now they are developing their new NDCs, which are mostly focused on industry, energy sector, and transport, while agriculture is not really mentioned. And we are developing kind of an appendix to the NDC 3.0 that is focusing on this inclusion of renewable energy in the AFOLU sector, which will have a huge potential to mitigate climate change impacts. And in this regard, we are also developing an action plan on the implementation of such energy technologies. Then we are working on a separate report on the energy smart agri-food systems, which is supposed to be a 2-part report to first raise awareness of how these solutions can be very important for agriculture and for climate goals, and then to also give a better understanding of how these can be integrated into the international climate action, including the new NDCs. And more specifically, we work a lot also on clean cooking, which is a very important solution and can be a very big part of renewable energy solutions, especially in Africa. And then in this report, we are looking at ways of how clean cooking can be recognized as a very important part of the NDC 3.0 and be integrated into the national development planning. And in this regard, I would like to thank you all. I would be very happy to engage in more discussion on this. And I just want to stress again how important it is to recognize how all sectors, which include the use of energy, can play a huge role in making the tripling renewable energy capacity possible. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Yanis. And I think that the whole point that Elizabeth was making in terms of this nexus approaches is what you said, which is how do we combat multiple crises at the same time, climate, food, energy, through this approaches. So thank you for bringing those specific examples in terms of how that is being done and the great support that FAO is providing. Let me move now to Salvatore Vinci from the World Health Organization. Salvatore, it would be great to hear from you what opportunities exist to expand the use of renewables in health and healthcare systems, and how can this contribute to countries' adaptation and mitigation goals? As Elizabeth was saying, energy goes way beyond just mitigation and is fundamental in countries to raise their resilience capacity. How can then WHO support countries to more effectively incorporate health-linked renewable solutions into their climate plans, their NDCs 3.0? Salvatore, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Pablo, and thanks for inviting us to this very, very important discussion. Actually, I love the concept that you and Elizabeth have highlighted about the importance of different sectors work together. In fact, I think we all agree that the kilowatt-hour itself is not important. It's important how it is used. And I think the point that you mentioned about the link with health is one of the most important use of electricity. Elizabeth mentioned the number that we have estimated a couple of years ago together with WHO, IRENA, Sustainable Energy for All, and World Bank, where actually we have estimated that 1 billion people worldwide are still served by healthcare facility with no electricity or with unreliable electricity. I think we all understand what it means in practical terms. It means that the cold chain for the vaccine cannot work. It means that in maternal and newborn, you don't have baby warmer, oxygen concentrator, incubator, suction unit, phototherapy. You don't have the essential medical devices that save life of people, of the most vulnerable people. So this is one of the cases where kilowatt hour save life immediately. When we say that kilowatt hour are not all the same, this is what we mean. Despite the huge importance of electricity in healthcare facilities, we still have this huge number, the 1 billion. The positive element is that today we have, as was highlighted before, the technology that can allow to address this gap. For example, solar system in healthcare facility can be deployed quickly, can be less, actually already in the medium term, less expensive than diesel or other solutions based on fossil fuel, can have huge contribution to the adaptation outcome that you and Elizabeth mentioned, can improve climate resilience. So basically, we have the possibility to really advance on decentralized solution that can have a multi-plan effect on mitigation, adaptation, and saving life of the most vulnerable. So my really contribution, hope, is that including in the great work that NDC Partnership been doing, that Elizabeth will doing with the partnership as well, it's really to push, to make energy people understand that energy practitioners are also health practitioners. When we are talking about renewable energy, we are talking about health intervention, public health intervention. I think this is crucial because, Pablo, the different requests for support that you mentioned before in your intervention regarding agriculture, regarding other sector, I'm not sure how many requests for support you receive for renewable energy in health, but I think that together we have to push for it. We have to push for really increase advocacy and highlight the importance of and feasibility of renewables in healthcare facility. We have estimated last year that already providing renewable energy, electricity to 50,000 primary healthcare facility. I'm not talking about the big hospital. I'm talking about 50,000 healthcare facility can save 8 million lives by 2040. So basically, it's an immediate contribution in addition to the benefit of climate. Of course, when we talk about the sector and we zoom out and we move from the low resource setting to high income settings, we have to recognize as well that the health sector contributes for 5% to the climate emission. So we, of course, when we talk about different settings, we have to make an effort to work on energy use, supply chain, transportation, and waste disposal, because also the health sector need to lead by example. Let me just spend the last few seconds to highlight that when we talk about climate change, we are talking about the main causes of climate change, which is fossil fuel, which is also the main cause for air pollution. And when we talk about air pollution, we are talking about 7.7 million deaths per year. Every year, almost 7 million premature deaths for outdoor and indoor air pollution combined. 3.2 million is just for the household air pollution. So again, we are talking about the main environmental risk factor when we talk about health. So again, we go back to the point that when we talk about energy, we are talking about health. So I really encourage all of us to continue working in this cross-sectoral approach. This is also one of the objectives of WHO. WHO work on guidelines, work on evidence, on evidence-based knowledge, work on country support, but also work to increase this cooperation between different sectors. We have different platforms. We have the energy and health platform for action. We have the attach, which is closely related with the climate and health action. We organize, you all know, the Health Day in every COP. All of these is really to highlight this cross-fertilization and to make sure that when we work on renewable and climate, we also maximize the health impact. Thank you again for the opportunity, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Salvatore. And I think that you were very good in demonstrated how you need to look at the different sectors and the opportunities from both sides, both in terms of the responsibility to fight climate change, in terms of adapting and reducing emissions. Every sector has a responsibility in doing so, but then the benefits of driving the sector forward in the most sustainable way. And you mentioned one of the critical elements of renewable energies that I think that sometimes is not recognized enough, which is the versatility. No, you talked about the centralized solutions with multiple benefits, and that is something that renewable energies can provide, and allows to solve problems in health and beyond in many countries around the world that are not yet part of the grid. And that is fundamental, because we just think about substituting fossil fuels with renewable energies when many countries, most developing countries, are still working on connecting all their populations with that reliable source of electricity. So that is also a fundamental element. Let me move quickly to Peter. Peter is representing a country that has been a very strong voice in terms of climate action, that has been a leader in terms of moving forward ambition and implementing those very ambitious goals. So Peter, what can you tell us about Rwanda's approach in integrating renewable energy into its NDC 3.0? And what opportunities and challenges do you see in implementing those targets related to renewable energies? And how can cross-sectoral collaboration support this effort? Rwanda has been an example in terms of developing investment plans that are cross-sectoral, and that allow to bring the different sectors together in providing those holistic solutions. So maybe, Peter, you can share some thoughts in terms of what Rwanda is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pablo, for this opportunity. to share insights on Rwanda's approach to integrating renewable energy into our NDC, specifically NDC 3.0, which is ongoing right now. So Rwanda's vision for a green and inclusive and climate resilient economy is strictly anchored in our long-term development plans and climate commitments. So in our NDC 3.0, renewable energy is not just a sectoral priority, it's a cross-cutting enabler for achieving mitigation targets, enhancing energy access, and building climate resilience across rural and urban areas in Rwanda. And this is anchored in Rwanda focusing on making sure that the mitigation contribution also has been informed by the outcomes of the first Global Stocktake. So our approach is twofold. First, we are expanding domestic renewable energy production through investments in off-grid solar, hydro, and waste-to-energy solutions, in line with our energy sector strategic plan. Second, we are mainstreaming energy access and efficiency across other sectors, particularly here, there's priority sectors that the government of Rwanda has selected. That is agriculture, healthy infrastructure, and urban development as part of a whole of economy NDC implementation strategy. So what are the opportunities that we see as we go forward in terms of finalizing our NDC, but also towards its implementation? The first opportunity that we see is in terms of technological advancement and cost reductions in decentralized energy solutions. The second opportunity we see is growing climate finance pipelines focused on just transition and clean energy access. And the third one we see as an opportunity is regional collaboration under our regional blocks, the East African Community and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area for power pooling and green infrastructure. These are opportunities where renewable energy production and access can play a bigger role in terms of green development for Africa, but also particularly for Rwanda. And the third area that we see is related to what we are discussing here, partnerships and collaborations, such as joining and fully participating in the partnership, because the partnership has been a very great blocker in terms of bringing technology, bringing finance, bringing capacity to our countries. And specifically, as we speak, NDC has supported a lot in mobilizing resources for us to develop our NDC. So, however, as we speak all that and we say all that what we are doing, the good thing that we are doing, challenges remain. And these challenges include limited public and private investment at scale needed to meet NDC targets. And the second challenge we see is regulatory and technical capacity gaps at country level, especially at the local government level. Because whatever we are doing in Rwanda, we have to scale it down to the lowest level in terms of participation of communities and local government in accessing renewable energy opportunities. And the third challenge that we see is coordination between sectors and between adaptation and the mitigation priorities. Because when when we are implementing, some of sectors think that they are excluded if they are talking about adaptation and not mitigation. But when you look at renewable serves better both across the board in terms of mitigation and adaptation priorities. So to overcome these challenges, we see opportunity to enhance cross-sectoral collaboration, which is very essential in terms of for us to coordinate better and to implement as whole of government, whole of society approach as a country. By joint planning between energy, agriculture, and environment ministries. Again, we see opportunity here in terms of addressing the challenges by integrating energy components into local government and climate resilient plans at the district level. In Rwanda, we have administratively 30 districts, and each district has what we call district development plans. So if we can integrate renewable energy targets at that level, that would actually bring us faster in terms of achieving our targets in NDC 3.0. The third one is engaging private sector and community cooperatives in energy delivering model. So this is very important in terms of co-implementation of NDC 3.0 is going to be critical between the private sector, the society, the communities, civil society organizations, and all multilateral development and development partner institutions. So in closing, we believe that delivering on our renewable energy goals under NDC 3.0 requires not only financial and technical resources, but a systems thinking approach, one that links climate goals with inclusive development outcomes. Thank you, Pablo. Over to you.
Peter, thank you so much. And of course, we have been hearing, including from you, how much this makes sense and how important it is. But you also raised something very important. There's still very important challenge in terms of capacity to drive this forward and effective mobilization of investments. And that is something that we all need to focus on. Of course, FAO, WHO, and all our partners are working tirelessly to provide the support that countries like Rwanda need to advance these objectives. But there's a lot more that we need to do. So it's not just that it makes sense. If we don't complement that logic of moving forward in this direction with appropriate support and finance, things will not actually happen on the ground. So let me now turn to our last speaker. I'm coming back to Elizabeth so that we can close the loop. Elizabeth, what key policy or planning shifts are needed at the national level to support the scale up of renewables in ways that are equitable? And I think this connects to everything that everyone has said. How do we turn this into our reality in the fastest way possible at the country level?
Yeah, Pablo, I think it's a really excellent question. And also, because oftentimes when we talk about renewables, by default, we talk about inclusiveness because, you can reach remote communities, but this is not going to happen by itself. So there needs to be a deliberate strategy for that. Like the first thing, and I think we mentioned that all of us is one way or the other, is that energy has to be linked to economic transformation. It has to be linked to social inclusion. It has to be linked to other sectors. So you cannot think about energy in isolation from job creation, from what are your educational policy, what is your critical sector needs in transport, agriculture, health, and everything else. So it's really a close alignment between the economic development plans and the cross-ministerial work. And in some ways, and I think I said it repeatedly over the years, I feel that our ministerial structures, our sectoral structures are a little bit outdated. And that brings me to a second point, because in some ways, we have this legacy 19th century thinking, because the energy and the system that we evolved, they very much drive everything else. So you have this 19th century system and infrastructure that shapes the way that we're thinking about economic activities and everything else, because we were thinking about the barrels of oil, tons of coal, this and that and whatever. And suddenly that's not the case anymore. Now what we need to think about access to technology. We need to think about digitalization. We need to think about the 21st century solutions. And it's like I was listening to Peter. Very nice to see you, Peter. I was listening to him, and I remember I lived in Rwanda many years back. And Rwanda is quite a mountainous country, and it has a lot of isolated communities. And they're now using drones to reach health facilities to bring, within half an hour, you can get actually blood supply from point A to point B, which, but, even 3 years ago, 5 years ago, would have been like a sci-fi movie. So the pace of change is really amazing. And this brings me back to the second point of decentralized solutions, because we sometimes think of decentralized solutions as an add-on. And they're not an add-on. They have to be treated as a part of critical infrastructure, as an asset, a strategic long-term asset. And that's also the mind shift that needs to take place, because often energy ministries are very traditional, and we don't blame them, because, if the lights are off, there's somebody's going to lose the job. So, but that creative thinking needs to come in, and because we really, the pace of change is incredible. We haven't even touched on artificial intelligence, but that's why I want to mention drones, because this is what Kenya is doing the same, Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire. The many countries, they're using drones to do that, and something has to power the drone, so it doesn't come from thin air. And then And then in that, when we look at decentralized solutions, you really need to have local community on board, because otherwise it's not going to work. And so it cannot be tick the box, we tick the box, we talk to women, we talk to children, we talk to everybody. It cannot be that. There has to be a serious inclusion, because you can make your community your asset, or you can make it your barrier. And I think the latter is a lot better option. And then finally, how you use public finance. And public finance, I mean, we still have a lot of ill-conceived subsidies. And it's a very big discussion, and we understand why why the vulnerabilities in some of the subsidies to fossil fuels. But when we look at subsidies that are given to clean energy, that also needs to be refined, and not just to pursue like in the large scale, how many gigawatt of whatever you have, but you also need to look at the distributional aspects and your development and economic outcomes. So your subsidies need to actually be bigger than just pushing the scale. So we're talking about tripling renewables, but like we're really tripling access, we're tripling opportunity, we're tripling agency, empowering people to do something. Otherwise, we actually risk powering the inequalities just with cleaner tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I think that was brilliant, because again, when we talk about the benefits of renewables in driving the different sectors, we need to think about the people, because that's the ultimate objective. And call it a just transition or a just development of renewables. You need to understand the ultimate goal is how to benefit people and how to bring well-being to everyone, and inclusive processes, engaging from the beginning with those who need to benefit from this or can be impacted, is critical in this. And I loved how you said that we need to evolve our thinking in terms of development. We cannot keep using the same model that we've been using for the last century, because of the differences in the world today. That pillar approach to sectoral solutions is no longer viable, and we need to innovate, and we need to keep up with the technology. And governments are really bad at doing that. The private sector does it very well, but the governments take a long time to do it. And it should be driven by governments and by tools like the NDCs and the energy plans that should push the private sector to actually do it faster for them. So I think that's a critical element. Unfortunately, we are out of time. This was a great conversation. I thank you all for your participation, and I invite all of you to continue engage with the partnership and all our audience to share questions. We will be sharing more information. Please stay in touch. Please stay connected. And we will continue hosting these kinds of conversations so that we can drive action through strengthened knowledge, through the experience of our members, both institutional and governments, so that everyone can learn from each other and we can collectively push forward in achieving the goals that we need to achieve. It's a critical year. Countries need to step up with their new NDCs. There's still opportunities to further raise ambition, and solutions like this provide a great opportunity to do it. Bringing in every sector of the economy, but most importantly, bringing in people, bringing in the well-being of the population front and center in the way that we think about driving climate action and sustainable development. So thank you very much. Thank you all for participating, and we'll see you all soon.